Hey there, it's hey there, it's Jim and Debbie with another episode of the Midday Minute. Debbie, it's episode 57.
We're getting old, Jim.
We sure are. We don't look it though. Look at you back in the original set of the Midday Minute at the office. How is it?
It's good to be back. It's actually it's very nice. We have quite a few staff here, not full, obviously we're not at full capacity, but it's great to come into the office and to see people, and we're starting to meet in person again, which is actually super exciting.
Yeah, it was exciting. We had a five of us in a meeting on Thursday at the office, which was very nice. For those who don't know, we have people in the office every day and have since July. And gradually we've been increasing capacity. Everybody's going into the office at least once a week at this point. We are limited to 60% capacity.
Right.
Those who aren't in the office are working from home.
That's right.
So today it's episode 57, and we are talking all about ketchup. Is it a fruit? Is there a better condiment?
In my opinion, there is no better condiment than ketchup, so we can just close this book right now.
Okay. In all seriousness, today's episode, we are going to catch up with the CIP. We got a big launch coming next week, 2 weeks.
No.
June 1st. Soon.
Yeah, June 1st
Soon.
is next
June
week.
1st. Okay, next week. So we're going to be joined by Meaghan Morris and Doug Wise, 2/3 of the legendary CIPsters from the Lodge Grant Program. They're going to talk all about the upcoming launch of Beacon Grants and Spotlight Grants. So what do you say? Without further ado, let's bring them out. Doug and Meaghan coming in hot. Hey guys.
Hi.
Hello.
Meaghan, you're in the office today too, I see.
Yes, I am. Yeah.
Good to be back.
Yeah, certainly more traffic.
So big day coming, what is it? Tuesday, right?
Yep, June 1st.
Why don't you tell our viewers what's happening?
Sure. So yeah,
go ahead.
Sorry. So the Beacon and the Spotlight grants will be opening to all lodges starting June 1st. The Beacon grant will still be worth $3,500 this year, and the Spotlight will be $2,000.
Now, a lot of folks are wondering, did they have to have met the National President's fundraising goal to qualify for those grants?
Nope, not for the Beacon and the Spotlight. It is available to every single lodge, so we hope every single lodge will apply.
That's why we make the funds available, isn't it?
Yeah.
What changes what changes should people expect this year to those two grants?
Sure. So specifically with the Beacon, we're still looking at the flexibility that we added last year in light of the pandemic. So with the increased funds of $3,500, lodges are still welcome to split the Beacon grant into two projects that would be helping their community. They're also welcome to use it as a donation to either a past partner organization that they've worked with before with their Beacon grant, or with an organization providing COVID relief like a food pantry, homeless shelter, domestic violence shelter. We also welcome the opportunity to merge the Beacon with the Spotlight grant. So you would only have to submit one application and one subsequent final report form for a total of a $5,500 Beacon grant.
So we above all, we want you to use those funds to help build a stronger community. And we want you to be able to serve safely. And so we're okay with donations this year. But if you are able to serve safely, we would encourage you to try to figure out an active use of those funds, because we think the Elks can derive the most benefit. Obviously, first and foremost, we want to serve our communities. That's the most important thing. But of secondary importance, we want to make sure the Elks are getting a benefit from this grant use. And when we donate to other organizations, they get the benefit for the good that happens from the grant money. We want the Elks to get some sort of benefit. So when you can serve safely, we will encourage you to do so. But first and foremost, use that money, right, Debbie?
Absolutely. And everybody will recall, we made that big change last year, obviously, in light of the pandemic. And it's one of the big reasons that we have waited until June 1st to launch the Beacon Grant and the Spotlight Grant, because we weren't sure what climate we were going to be in. And we are seeing, we talked with Katie a few weeks back about the gratitude grants, and that there's still a lot of donations being made to food pantries and food banks. And we're starting to see, though, more active grant use. And we did last year as well. We saw lodges really come up with creative ways to serve community in the safest way possible. So we saw the drive-through supply drives and things like that. I'm sure Katie talked about them, and Meaghan and Doug will also be able to give us a few of their favorites from last year and what they hope to see for this year. But just so our middies know, we have 3 staff in the community investments program, and each has their own kind of specialty grant component. And of course, when we talked to Katie a few weeks back, it was because she heads up our gratitude grants. Meaghan heads up our Beacon grants, and then Doug with the Spotlight grant, and then he also works on the impact grant as well. So Doug, why don't you tell us what you're looking forward to with the Spotlight grant, and again, that we're kind of seeing all the things we introduced last year staying the same this year, and then next year we'll step back and go back to what we believe to be the most effective grant use of our grants, which is active grant use.
Right. So as Meaghan mentioned, we're going to continue with the ability to donate the Spotlight grant via COVID relief as a separate project plan. So if the lodge feels it's not quite safe to do the project they'd like to do, they can do that with the COVID relief plan. And they can also find ways to have less active use of our other 6 ready-made project plans that are focusing on family literacy and veterans homelessness. So you can go in and see our ready-made projects. We have our toolkits there with all the information about all of those projects, and you can do those projects in a number of creative ways. So I'm just really looking forward to the 3rd year of the Spotlight grant. We saw a huge jump in the number of lodges who applied and received the Spotlight grant from year 1 to year 2. I believe we got 400 or so more Spotlight grants in 2020, and I'm hoping that we continue to increase the number of lodges that are utilizing Spotlight grant.
Yeah, so the idea, for those who don't know, we rolled out Spotlight grants a couple of years ago, and the idea was it was sort of a training program for good grant use. We were trying to get more lodges to take advantage of our Beacon grants, and we felt like a good approach to get lodges there were to show them what a good grant project looked like. And so Spotlight grant, it's intended to be sort of an off-the-shelf. Here it is. This is what a project looks like. Now find the volunteers and implement it. Maybe we call it Baby's First Grant Project. But of course, we built in flexibility during the pandemic, and lots of lodges were using those for COVID relief and donations, and that was fantastic. The Elks were there when our communities needed us most this past 14 months.
Absolutely.
And then Beacon grants, that's the big one, $3,500 available to any lodge. It's intended to fund that one project that your lodge is known for in the community. That's the idea behind the Beacon grant. Meaghan, what's been some of the favorite Beacon grants you've seen?
Sure. So as Debbie mentioned, I was so impressed last year with all the creativity that lodges put into trying to make their usual Beacon Grant project more pandemic friendly, so to speak. So lots of drive-throughs. One of my favorites, and has been my favorite for a couple years since I've been working here, Burlington, Iowa, lodge number 84. They continued their project, which focuses on fire and CO2 safety. They have a lot of people in their community who live in trailers and smaller homes like that. And so they provide fire detectors and CO2 detectors. This year they did it as a drive-through event and produced some fire safety website videos online. And they attribute 2 lives saved to this project, which I think is incredible and so wonderful. We also have lodges like Deming, New Mexico, lodge number 2750. They ended up merging their Beacon grant with their Spotlight grant for a total of $5,500 available. And they hosted a drive-through event to provide PPE and COVID relief products to families in need. So again, just always shocked and so happy to see all of these wonderful projects going on. We also have lodges like Ashland, Wisconsin, lodge number 137. So kind of close to us here. They use their project usually, their application, they said in previous years, we used the Beacon grant to create and fund a junior golf school. And although we have had a wonderful experience with this group, we've decided that the current pandemic needs our full attention. And so they used their Beacon, their Spotlight, and their Gratitude grant for a total of $8,000 to donate to a benevolence program through their food pantry. And that provided families with rent, utilities, food, and transportation costs.
That's fantastic.
Those are some incredible projects. You'll recall a lot of, we talked about this last year, but I think it's worth noting that when we were heading into the grant year 2021, the Beacon grants were going to be $3,000. We had already, the board had authorized an increase from $2,500 to $3,000. But when we knew that the pandemic was going to basically affect every single thing that we were going to be doing, and we decided to not offer the promise grants, we were able to then increase the Beacon grants to $3,500. That also had to do with not offering new impact grants as well. So $3,500, we were able to retain that again this year. And introducing the ability to merge the Spotlight grant into the Beacon grant to have one large $5,500 project was something I know we were all super proud of, and that many lodges took advantage of it. But then to hear a lodge like Ashland, Wisconsin merge, also supersized with their Gratitude grant, and then Doug, I know this is one of your faves, they also have an impact grant. So they are, really helping build a stronger Ashland with our grant program. So it's really something to be really proud of. You want to touch for just a second, Doug, on their impact grant? And I know we can also mention, our communications that we've launched since the new grant year. And Meaghan's had 2 take sips with a couple of our excellent grants coordinators. Doug, I think you're up in June, and spoiler alert, it might be somebody with Ashland.
Yeah, they may be hearing this here first. I still need to invite them, but Ashland, Wisconsin 137 has had an excellent first year impact grant during the pandemic. Their project's called Growing Within the Community. So they're creating a community garden there and donating all the food that they're growing to that same food pantry that they did with all their other grants, the Brick Ministries. And then they're also doing educational sessions with kids from 4-H and really anyone in the community who wants to learn more about growing sustainable food and different just ecological topics that can help improve their community beyond hunger and moving forward. So really great project. I'm a sucker for community garden projects. I think it's great. Help the environment as well as the people who get to enjoy the environment. And it's just an exciting project. And we're looking forward to working with them again on all of their grant projects.
Great. Jim, remember in the early days, we used to talk a lot about that for a lodge to have the biggest impact in their community, it would be to do exactly what Ashland is doing, which is to combine all of their grants to focus on one cause, one issue, and that would bring, have, like I said, have the biggest impact, but also probably garner the most attention.
Right. Yeah. We definitely first saw lodges moving in that direction. But one of the hallmarks for the CIP has always been that lodges know the needs of their communities best. And so, on the other end of the spectrum are the lodges that are not just using maybe 3 different projects, but even spreading, like taking that Beacon grant and using it as a donation, but supporting multiple organizations or 2 organizations with that or what have you. So, a lot of flexibility with the CIP. What your community needs the most. And what we're trying to do is make sure you have the resources, and you can put those resources in the hands of passionate, dedicated volunteers to do big things in your community. So I've, like Debbie, we've been around the SIP a long time. And one of my favorite things is the feedback we get from lodges, specifically from, first timers who are surprised at how easy it was to get a grant. And I suspect, we're preaching to the choir with our audience. These are some pretty dedicated Elks who watch the show, and many of them have been project coordinators, and they know that it's, these applications are 4 questions essentially, right? It's, but if you are watching the show and you have not, your lodge has not taken advantage of our grants, give it a try. It's, it's not that difficult. And the other thing is, the first response you get from us is never no. It might be, we have additional questions, there's follow-up needed, but follow-up needed is not no. If we're trying to get you to yes, and we have some questions about your application. We have many, many talents at the Elks National Foundation, but omniscience is not one of them. So we have some questions, we want to know some things. And then based on your answers, we might suggest some changes that, again, we're trying to work with you to get your idea to yes.
100%.
Yeah. But also, specifically during this pandemic, some of the feedback we've gotten from lodges about what our grants allowed them to do for their communities during this time of incredible need was just like, can you guys talk about some of that? Because you're the ones who are on the front line of getting that feedback.
Yeah, truly, I've been blown away just by how much all these Elks want to help out with their community. They know where the needs are, and the feedback has really been overwhelming and overwhelmingly positive. Even with the survey that we sent out at the end of the year to secretaries, grant coordinators, and exalted rulers, the majority of the feedback was just so positive. They were so happy to be doing something in their community at a time when, I felt kind of helpless at some times. So having people step up and really doing that has been so wonderful and helpful. Yeah.
I mean, I think
we captured some of those comments in a visual that we put together based on that survey. And you can, visit the CIP website to see what people had to say.
Yeah.
What I was going to say is that in general, I think people end up working for nonprofits because they want to feel like they're making a difference. And, I've been at the foundation now for coming up on 24 years. And I've never felt more like I was making a difference than during the past 14 months. Of what we were able to help lodges do during the pandemic was just incredible.
Oh, yeah. We actually were talking about the CIP team, and I were talking about that the other day, about how the community investments program and our grants. First of all, we broke records, right? We awarded the most Beacon grants. Doug already mentioned how many Spotlight grants we awarded last year. Almost record gratitude grants. I mean, we were doing a lot. Our volunteers knew that they were available and knew that they didn't want to, we've talked a lot about not being on the sidelines. They were not going to be on the sidelines. They were going to use this money and leverage all they could to make a difference in their community. And it's been fantastic to know about, to hear about, to be a part of. And it's the way when we hear these, antidotes, and we hear responses or posts on social media, like, it's a direct connection to what we're doing. Meaghan's sitting in her office, I'm sitting in my office, you guys are sitting in your home offices, right? But we have a part of what's happening in the community, and it makes us all feel really good.
Yeah, it's definitely a highlight of the year, being able to just give out money and have all these people doing just incredible things.
And even with the low bar of the past year, right? It didn't have to be that high to be a highlight, but it was way up here. It was really a lot of feel-good moments when that feedback would come in.
Yeah, for sure.
I guess I want to touch on Promise Grants. You kind of alluded to it. Once again, we will not be offering Promise Grants this year. That's not necessarily a forever decision. And the current size of Beacon grants at $3,500 is not necessarily forever tied to a decision on promise grants. Our philosophy, we talked about it on the show before, is that if we're going to allow donations with our grants, right, that it does not make sense to have to offer limited grants that are available only in limited quantities. Like, there are 300 promise grants available in 2019. We just don't feel like offering 300 grants that can be used for donations makes sense, because we can't select the best ones, right? It's first come, first serve. It becomes just a mad dash to claim that money. We instead wanted to use those resources to make Beacon grants larger. So we'll see what happens next year. We don't know. It's too early to tell what's going to happen next year. And I wanted to just ask a couple more questions about impact grants. What do we have a plan yet for impact grants?
We do have a plan. Doug, do you want to talk about our plan?
Yeah, so we are going to be opening up the impact intent process for 2022 impact grants. Now, if you're listening and you're not familiar, the impact grants do run on the calendar year. So they run January 1st to December 31st. So I believe our plan, and I think I can say this officially, is to open the impact intent on July 1st.
Can I step in real quick and just say that we talked about how easy it is to apply for our grants, the 4 questions. I was talking about the smaller grant. The impact grant is a challenging grant. It's competitive. And in order to get a complete picture of what the lodge is proposing, we have to ask a lot of questions. But our attempt to make it an easier process for people who apply was implementing this intent step. That's a much simpler piece. You don't have to submit a complete application only to be told no, right? You tell us what you want to do, and then we review those intents and we'll invite people to apply for the, so at least it's a lot easier to, decide you want to try it, right? You don't have to complete the full application, right?
Yeah, it's an elevator pitch, really, right? It's like you have a project idea and you're able to just kind of put it down,
Right.
Like, here's what we want to do. That's
Right.
basically what the intent is.
And we can save you and us a lot of time by heading off projects that don't quite rise to the impact grant standards.
Right.
Okay, Doug, sorry.
No, sure. You covered a lot of what I would have said, but yeah, that impact intent, that's the first step of the process. That will likely be open for about 2 months. We want lodges to really think critically about what their idea is, what their plan is, to effectively tell us, who, what, where, when, why, how, exactly what the project is. Don't, write out a full application's worth of information. Part of this being competitive is that we are rewarding lodges who can succinctly tell us what the project is, who they're going to be helping, what they're going to spend funds on, so that we can confidently move lodges on to the full application. And to give lodges a little bit of an idea of how that went down back in 2019 when we did this during my first run with this, we received, I think, 151 impact intents, and we ended up inviting somewhere like 40 lodges to the full application. So it is an competitive.
And of those 40 we awarded, was it like
14
new ones? Okay.
Yeah, and I can say that the vast majority, if not all of those, were able to execute the project during a very difficult first year. I'm very proud of some of our first year projects from this past year, and really looking forward to lodges pitching to us their new impact grants. And once the lodges are invited, then we'll have that application open for several months, and we're thinking about other ways to further that process to make sure that we are awarding grants that are ready to go and be executed on the largest scale that we have for CIP grants.
And so, if you're watching the show and you're new to our grant program, that sounds like a lot, I'm sure. But again, we've built an on-ramp for you in the Spotlight grants. It's an easy entry point to our lodge grant program. So check out our Spotlight grants. Get started there, work your way to a Beacon grant. If you've qualified for a gratitude grant, which is the only one, it's contingent on enough giving. use that as well and work your way toward an impact grant.
Right. And if you have questions about it, do not hesitate to reach out to us, and you know, we'll help you. We'll help you take that, you know, idea and maybe, you know, expand on it and make it into something that you might want to be, you know, you might be able to do. So that's what we're here for.
Exactly.
And for the skeptics out there about our grants, I encourage you to watch Take a Sip, right? Our new program where where our CIPsters, the first 2 episodes, it's been Meaghan, are interviewing real live Elks who have served as project coordinators at their lodge. What will people find when they tune in?
Yeah, so for the past 2 Take a Sips, they'll find some great projects that they can model at their own lodges. Our first featured a person, Jen Newberger, who was a first-year grant coordinator as well. So she offers some great advice if you're trying to jump into the grant program at your lodge on what to do.
You know, the Midday Minute is more like a gulp or several gulps. It's a chug. Take a Sip is a shorter program, right? It ranges 5 minutes, 7 minutes. It's just giving you a sip, a taste.
Just a taste.
Sip, right? Answering
sweet.
some questions. You're hearing from some project coordinators, getting some project ideas, and hopefully the show will inspire people to give the sip a try.
Exactly.
Right? We've invested a lot of money in our SIP this year. It's nearly $15 million. And most of that is money going it's allocated to go right to lodges to help them serve their communities. But we can't do that for you. We need people to step up at the lodge with ideas, with a need in their community, with an idea about how to meet that need, and then complete the application and then work with us to get that idea to yes. Debbie, anything else for our CIPsters?
I think that's it. Just, you know, please visit the website. There's excellent resources there available for you. Not only the toolkits that we have for each grant component that actually has not only the nitty-gritty details, but also then real live examples of grant projects. So those are an invaluable resource. You know, there's the SIP participation report. You can see who in your state has received grants and what the status is. There's the lodge, the grant history report, also a really valuable resource to be able to look at any lodge that's received a grant, to look at their application, see what their status is and all. So elks.org/SIP, great place to start. Each component has a page, and then there's a resource page. And that's also where we share our amazing stories about our incredible volunteers and these incredible projects. So please.
Yeah, I was going to say there's some really cool breakdowns of the prior grant season, how money was used, and the records that we set, and all that stuff. And it's some great visuals available on the website. And of course, if you're not already following us on Instagram, we'd encourage you to do that, because the Elks in Action posts are a near daily source of inspiration.
They really are. And stay tuned throughout the month of June. We'll roll out more information about what the impact grant timeline is going to be, when, as Doug said, when the intents will launch on July 1st, how long they'll be, you know, available, and then what the full fleshed out timeline is.
All right, Doug, Meaghan, any final thoughts from you guys?
Oh, thank you so much for having us on the Midday Minute.
All right, thanks.
Looking forward to
episode of Taking a Sip.
Yeah.
Of course.
All right, see you guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye. So, Debbie, it's it's been a busy May as we were kind of winding up the hoop shoot and the leadership weekend, all that stuff, and it's about to get even busier with the launch next week.
It is, but it's such a good busy, Yeah. It's like we're busy getting ready to make a huge difference in the lives of so many people in so many communities. So it never feels like a burden. It always feels exciting.
All right. Well, if you've enjoyed this episode of the Midday Minute, give us a thumbs up. If not, a thumbs down. Either way, share it far and wide so everybody will learn about the SIP. If you're not already subscribing to our YouTube channel, hit that button and tap the bell so you'll be notified every time we post new content, like Take a Sip, the monthly show about the sip, or Hoop Shooting the Breeze, the monthly show about the hoop shoot, or 20 for 20, our bi-weekly show about our scholars.
So much content.
So much content, right?
Yeah.
All right. Thanks so much for watching, and we will catch you in a couple of weeks.
Bye.
Bye.